So I am so excited that today I have my daughter Ava joining me again for another episode of the Midlife Muse podcast, Things Your Mother Never Told You. Welcome back, Ava.
Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about something that if you have been paying attention in the last several weeks, you've probably heard about this. If not, I'm going to give you some context. It is the man versus bear or man or bear situation in regards to a woman being alone in the woods. Would she rather come across a random man in the woods or a random bear? And we are hearing from women around the world over and over again. The results are in and continue to show the same exact results. The majority of women
Pick bear.
have picked a bear.
Yeah. I doubt anyone's really that surprised by that though, except for maybe the men who are hearing that.
Yes, I think there is definitely some outrage around this, primarily with men. And I created a reel on this today. And in the reel, I talked about how it is very obvious to me why instinctually I went to bear, why you went to bear, and every woman that I've talked about it with instinctually automatically said bear. And so what I want to talk to you about is let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I also want to go deeper and have a bigger conversation about what this gets to look like for the men that we love and the men in our lives, because I love men. I have a phenomenal husband. I've raised 3 boys. I absolutely love men. What I'm hoping happens in today's conversation is we open up more ways to deepen into these types of really hard conversations with the men in our lives. And we will give some strategies. You and I will be sharing some strategies of how we've done that with our own partners, how we've talked about it in our circles and in our groups. And really what I want today to be about is the possibility of what lives underneath, like the potentiality of what can happen if we learn to normalize having really hard conversations.
Yeah.
And so let's do that. But before we go into all of that, Ava, I want to kind of hear, you were the first one to send it to me a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
The first time I heard it, you sent it to me. So tell me a little bit about it. And to like your thoughts when you saw it.
Yeah, I saw it on TikTok. I see now it's like all over Instagram and everywhere. I mean, everyone's really talking about it, but I saw it on TikTok and I feel like I'd heard something about it before. It just felt familiar, but yeah, I watched the video and again, like you said, right away, it's just you're just thinking bear. And a lot of people, mainly men, at least that I saw in the comments, were like, why would you pick bear? Like that doesn't make any sense. And that's why we need to have these conversations, because it actually does make sense. Because there was even statistics on the kind of harm that is done to women by men versus bears. So it's like, even if you just want to look at the statistics.
I included that in my reel.
So even that makes more sense. It's like, how does it not make sense if you look at proof, right? But it's even just this, it's just a feeling, like you said. And one of the things that I saw a lot of people saying was that, again, if you're in the woods, you are in the bear's home. You're not in the man's home. So it's instinctive for them. They're going to, if they were to do anything, which they might not even do anything, but if they were to do anything, it's not because coming from a place of hatred or coming from a place of power or control. It's coming from a place of, those are their instincts. They're actual animals and they don't mean to hurt you. And again, another one I saw is that they see you as a human, but that these men who could hurt you, they don't see you as a human. And it is for power and it is for pleasure. And it's not because they are in fear that you might hurt their family or that you're a foreigner to them. You're just you're another person, and yet they're not going to see you that way. So I think those are some of the main things that I saw and that I definitely resonate with. It's just like, and another thing we were talking about was that if you were to get attacked by a bear, No one's going to ask you what you're wearing. No one's going to ask you, well, what did you do first? Like, what happened before? Everyone's
Did you provoke him?
Yes, and everyone's going to say, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry. And
I believe you.
Yes, they're going to believe you. Nobody's going to question you. And that's that. But if it was a man, I mean, this is the same thing with rape. It's like, what were you wearing? What did you do? You probably led him on. What were you drinking? But no one's going to ask you those questions if it's a bear.
Right. Exactly. It's such a good point. It's this idea of if you're walking alone and you come across a man, the fear that is instilled in us because of so many stories we do hear and because of the way we were raised or things that have happened to many women, we instinctually feel the fear. Similarly, that we would feel the fear if we saw a bear. And this isn't,
not to cut you off, but I'm even thinking right now,
yeah,
because I was just, while you were talking, I was just thinking about like really picturing myself in the woods. First of all, that's already scary enough.
Right.
That's already scary enough. Just being alone in general.
We can't even, having that conversation is a whole nother conversation.
Just walking around alone anywhere is scary enough. So obviously to see a bear or to see it, and it's crazy, but it's just a different kind of fear, I think. That's what it is. It's like, if you see a bear, you're scared that, yeah, maybe they might kill you, but you're not scared they're going to rape you. You're not scared that they're going to take advantage of you, that they're going to, like,
dehumanize you.
It's a different fear.
Yeah.
And I think that, and the fear of the man's worse, because there's endless opportunities of what they could do.
Yes.
And that's, yeah.
You know what this reminds me of, Ava? I just had a vision of us sitting at our house in Connecticut, probably about 6-7 years ago. And the trend that was kind of going on then, as far as conversation was concerned, was this conversation around if you could be guaranteed complete and total safety after midnight, what would you go out and do? And you and I had like an exhaustive list. Like, I'd go lay on the beach and look at the stars. I'd go for a run in the park by myself. I would run errands to like the 24-hour supermarket because there wouldn't probably be as many people there and I can be more efficient. And I would just go out and listen to the animals in the woods. And we talked about like, there's so many things we would do. And I remember asking your brothers and dad, what would you do differently? And they kind of looked at me and like, anything. I would just do anything.
It's just my normal life most of the time. And it's, of course,
and they were shocked to hear the things we said.
I do remember this because I wasn't remembering it when you were saying it, but I do remember it now because they were like, oh.
And those kinds of conversations
are important because how are they supposed to know that?
Right.
I mean, and that's kind of what we talked about in the other episode. It's like, can we really put blame on them, or can we really, like, is it really their fault all the time if they don't know these things? Because there's a difference. Again, there's the guy who doesn't know, and then you try to tell him and he doesn't listen or doesn't care. And there's the guys like them who actually are curious and they want to learn, because then that you don't grow if you don't have that. You need to have these conversations. There's actually something very similar, but that I also saw on TikTok, and it was basically just, I don't even remember if it was a video or if it was in the comments or what, but basically some guy saying, oh, well, what would you do without men? And like everyone's like, I'd probably not be scared all the time. Like probably be able to, and the same things, like not be checking behind my shoulder all the time and live in constant fear all the time. You don't even have to be in the woods to be afraid to see a man when you're alone.
Well, this is what I was thinking when they were talking about this. I thought, well, this would just be my normal feeling. We live very, very close to the beach. And there are so many nights I think about how nice it would be when I'm done with a long day of work to go by myself and just walk there and lay on a blanket and just be in Mother Nature. But the reality is I can't do that. And I don't think that's the same experience for men.
It's not. It's just not. Like, we can't even, and it's not, this is what I was kind of getting into before, but I kind of stopped saying it. But the thing is, of course, there's fear for everyone. You always have to be safe. Absolutely. At night, it's always going to be more dangerous. Like 100%, it's always going to be more dangerous. Like, but it's a little bit different. It is different. And if you deny that, then you're not looking at it truthfully.
Well, if you deny that, that means you're not able to hold the energy of listening.
Yeah.
And you're not able to hold the experience of someone else's lived experience.
Yeah.
And so in my reel, when I was talking about the man bear thing, what I was saying was essentially to women is that if you are, this is not about blaming anyone. This is about if you are with a man or dating a man or in your circles with men, not even able to have conversations about these things without them getting defensive, attacking, shutting you down, making fun of you, then you don't want to be in the woods with them because these are not the men who, to me, one of the biggest red flags is when you cannot be in conversation with another person who can hold curiosity.
Yeah.
To me, I have no interest in even being in friendships, relationships with people who don't have the ability to be more curious about themselves, about the world, about the things that affect the person they're sitting with.
That matter.
Right. If you
have substance.
Right. If you care about somebody and they come to you with something like this, I would
care too.
Yes, I'd be so curious. Like, tell me more.
Yeah.
That's not been my lived experience. Help me understand that. Because only through my curiosity and understanding could I ever possibly begin to play a 1% in the change, even if it just allows me to go into my groups of people and have more of this conversation. But we're going to get nowhere when people are getting stonewalled and gaslit, being told that that's not their experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it's just, and even if other women don't feel that way, because maybe there are women who feel, and but if they don't listen to other women, it's just damaging. They might want to be in the woods with a man, and that's fine, but that doesn't mean that other women do.
Right.
So it's important that men and women can listen to each other and learn, because everybody has different experiences. Women as a whole have experiences that we can all share, but I mean, some people have had worse experiences, which would make them more scared versus somebody who hasn't. And
Absolutely.
who's maybe been able to live a more sheltered life from the harsh reality of why most people would choose a bear.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that ultimately what we really wanted to have this conversation for was, how do we lead people in greater conversations around the things that matter to us, around the things that feel scary to us? And I think when we talk about the women who don't hold that experience, of course, there are going to be women who've had incredible experiences and say, "Oh, I would definitely choose the man." But my question mark for them would be, are you not paying attention to the statistics? Are you not paying attention to the amount of women that are being put in really violent situations over and over again at the hands of men? And so the term, that I think about in that way is patriarchalized women.
Yeah, I already knew you were going to say that. I was just thinking, it's like, why are you really saying you would rather be in the woods with a bear? It's like, why do you really think that?
With a man, you mean?
Or sorry, yes. Why would you rather be with a man? Because it doesn't really make sense. Because of the statistics. Because of, I mean, are you living under a rock? You know what happens to other women. You know how fearful women are of men. And so maybe it's that. Maybe it's just this different kind of view, and they don't even realize that they're looking from that kind of lens. And it's just this idea maybe where, it's a little bit different, but there's a lot of times where I will hear certain things that girls say, and this is totally different than this. But I'm like, are you saying that because there's guys around and you want them to think that you're just, again, one of the cool girls? Because that girl doesn't exist. You're kind of in denial. I really doubt you would rather be with a man. I really do. And it's like a hard thing, because sometimes women are the hardest ones to talk to.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
1,000,000%. I think that when I talk about patriarchalized women, and I write about this in my book as well, it is women who are so deeply bought into the patriarchy and the yes woman who isn't able to ever lift her head up and see and understand the global experience for women at large and the violence that happens for women. And my fear around that is often a lot of those women are first, there's women that are just truly unconscious to it, right? It's like this invisible toxin that's just floating around in the air, and they've been breathing it in. It's
just normalized for them.
Yes, for generations after generations. They're not breaking out into bigger circles, having conversations like this for deeper consideration. So there's women like that. And then there are women who I think are more terrifying. And those are often the women who, I think for many, it is really the only semblance of power they actually even have, is to side with the men. It's their only place in a patriarchalized world where the woman can feel relevant, where the woman can feel similar to the Game of Thrones we were talking about, right? Where the two women who ended up being the best fighters and with the bow and arrow, and those were the ones.
People liked them the most. I mean, all the people watching the show liked them the most. They were the ones who weren't abused. So it makes sense. I mean, it's sad, but it makes sense why a lot of girls do that.
Yes.
But then again, it's like, okay, you're doing that. It's probably not actually truthful to what you really deep down feel. And then all you're doing is attracting the wrong men. Maybe in that scenario, you might think it's the right men, but it's wrong. Because like we said, if you can't feel that way and you can't have those perspectives and those opinions, and you can't talk about, if you can't say, oh yeah, I'd rather be with a bear, then those aren't the right guys. Those aren't the right people. Those aren't who you should be around, because at the end of the day, why are you going so hard to be this? They don't care about you. They don't care about you. They really don't, because if you have to put on this whole facade, you have to act like the cool girl, like you don't care. Because again, some people really don't know, and some people actually do, and they're putting on this whole act. Why?
Yes.
For what? For these guys to still not give you respect?
Right.
To still not care. Like it's so sad. I hate seeing it, because, and again, but it's like it's hard to even talk to them.
Absolutely.
And it's just what is the point? You're not getting anywhere with them. You're not getting anywhere with yourself. You're lying to yourself. You're lying to these guys, and it's not going to do anything for you.
Yes. And I think for some, it's just easier, quite honestly, to just stay unconscious to it.
Yeah.
I think for some, if they really started to open the box and look at how deeply they're buried in there, their whole life would have to change in order for them to even have a voice that mattered. So it's sometimes easier to just not even look and just do the easier thing and turn inside with.
That's a big thing too. Just in general, but I hear about people saying those kinds of things all the time in relationships. Oh, like I'd rather just not know. I'd rather just, because that's a whole other conversation. But those kinds of things, it's just, I couldn't imagine, because you're living a lie.
Absolutely.
And it's like, you can't look at what do you think they're doing something you're not even okay with. That's a whole other conversation.
Yes, we'll do a conversation in coming weeks just about the stages and ways of deep communication, because I think it would really help.
That would be a good, kind of like we were talking about before, maybe some parts to it, or a little series, like different kinds of communication and relationships, and different ways to be able to be authentic in your relationship. I think that's really important. And that has so many layers. I think that's a really important thing.
Yes. And I teach the levels of communication in my Muses community.
Yeah.
So that's just a place where we continue to expand on everything you hear on this podcast. All of these conversations happen inside of my Muses community on the daily, where I am interacting with those women. But you know what's interesting, Ava, is I had responded to, typically when a reel goes up, I have a short window between when it gets posted. I'm paying attention at the beginning to some of the comments, and then eventually I have to go on with my workday, and I can't keep up with the amount of comments as much as I would love to interact with everybody. I did respond to one woman, and she had made a comment basically about, it's just an automatic red flag if a guy wouldn't want to be curious about a deeper conversation around why a woman has chosen a bear over a man. And I said to her back, I completely agree with you. And for me, if I were single and dating, that's the first thing you bring up. Yes. Yeah. I'm like, this is my litmus test. Yeah. Like, let me just ask you straight away, because I will know immediately in how you respond if we are even an energetic match, if I'm even interested in dating.
That's one of the things that I want to talk about, like when we do the relationship thing. It's like, why are you even getting into relationships with people if you're not having these conversations and you're hiding those kinds of things? Like, that's so important. Like, right out of the get-go, that if a guy is not, again, he might not be there yet, but if he's not open to it, if he's not trying, that's the big thing. Because in my relationship, there's been so much growth and understanding on his end from what he's been willing to hear. Because it's about being willing in every stage of in every part of the relationship, every aspect. Doesn't even have to do with this kind of stuff, but both people have to be willing to learn. It's never easy, but like, what is the point other than that? Like, what is the point?
Okay, let's just circle back on two of my most favorite words in the world. And one you just said, willing, with the W, okay? Willing. And the other one, curiosity, with the C, right?
Yeah.
Willingness and curiosity. If you have those in a relationship, I'm willing to hear your perspective.
It's everything.
I'm curious how you're feeling. We're not expecting, let's say again, for the litmus test, if I was asking a man about this, if he'd heard about
is the litmus test the name of the...
No, a litmus test is basically a test. I remember learning about litmus tests back in science.
Okay, because I don't
where you were testing to see if something was, I can't even remember now. This shows how much attention I paid in science class and why I am not in that industry.
Yeah.
It was something about testing to see if something was acidic or neutral or positive, like those kinds of things.
Okay.
So you're running a test to see like what the match is.
Okay.
Right? So it would be my test. I'm just using the word litmus test from science. Like it would be my litmus test to see, like, are we a match?
Right.
And I'm not looking, the answer of, oh yeah, I totally agree with you. It's not what I'm looking for.
Because it's not realistic. It's not, because in my relationship, what is always said is he always, and I know this, he's like, I can never understand what you're going through, but I'll do my best to try and hear your experience, or I'll do my best, because that's all you can do.
Yes.
Because men and women are different, and we love men for men, and we love women for women, because we're supposed to be different. Otherwise, we'd all be the same. We're supposed to bring different things to a relationship, and that's one of the things we can bring. But again, you bring things, and if they're not willing to take it, then you're not in. It's not a good match, because it's not a match where it's this perfect match. Oh, we both line up on everything. Because you're never going to find that.
Never.
But the match is the willingness. That's what the match is.
Yes.
So I think that's so important to
have. And
have.
that's what I really want people to hear today around this man and bear thing. It's not whether or not every man you talk to about this is like, I get it. I understand you. I hear you. What you want to pay attention to is, are the men that you surround yourself with or in partnership with, are they men who say, oh my gosh, that's heartbreaking to me. I'm actually devastated to hear that. Or, oh my gosh, that's confusing to me. I don't understand why that would be.
Yeah, because
but I'm curious.
It doesn't even have to be them like, oh my God, that's awful. It could more just be, why?
Yes.
And as much as we would love them to just get it right away, and some guys do. I mean, I saw so many videos on TikTok about a lot of like fathers talking about, I have daughters, and I know right away that I would pick a bear.
Well, Dad did.
For their daughters, and I know that so many boyfriends would pick, but there's a lot of people who don't get it. And again, it's just about, they need to be curious why.
Yes.
They need to want to learn. They need to want to hear the perspective, because otherwise it's just an argument and it gets nowhere, or they just don't even ask.
Yes, absolutely. So that's what you want to pay attention to, is the person that you're having the conversation with willing to be curious, to hear your experience. Or if you say to them, if they're perplexed by it or they're frustrated by those results, if you say to them, I would love to explain my perspective, my experience, my perspective, and why I think the results came out this way. And if they say, yes, tell me, I want to hear that, then you have something to work with.
Yeah.
It is not about expecting every man right out of the gate to understand. It is expecting them to hold the energy of curiosity and the energy of willingness to have uncomfortable situational conversations. And they don't have to come in knowing everything. That's not what we're asking. And vice versa. I'm always saying to Dad, help me understand your experience, help me understand your perspective. And in doing that in both directions, it's where we've been able to build such a bridge and have so much respect for each other's experiences, which are often wildly different as men and women in the world.
Which can be such a great thing if we can honor that and listen, because if not, it's just more, you're just dividing everything more. It's just separating us more when there's a man and a woman for a reason. Like, we can be different and that's okay, but it's like, if you can't listen to each other, then it's never going to work.
And when you are both able to lean in and harness that willingness and curiosity, what you have the potential of creating is mind-blowing. That is the power couple. That is the couple who nothing that comes their way is ever going to crush them or level them, because they will both hold the ability to continue to come back with curiosity and willingness to, like, wow, we just got knocked down. How did that happen to us? What were we missing that we weren't able to be more grounded when that problem came our way and we got so easily taken down with that storm? It's so around every corner. I just really want anyone who's listening to hear that with willingness, with curiosity, even being able to go to your partner with this conversation or have them sit and listen to this with you is the beginning of fostering a relationship where those are your biggest values that you carry.
I honestly think that how somebody would respond to this kind of thing, or any conversations regarding the female experience, really will mirror everything else.
Yes, Ava.
Honestly.
Yes.
Because that's at least my experience in my relationship. It's just he's just so open, and it's just such a graceful thing, and it's that's how it should be. I mean, this is a whole other thing we can talk about too, which I think is so interesting, but this whole idea of feminine and masculine, and like, what does that really mean? And in order to be able to be feminine, and in a relationship with a man, you need somebody who's masculine, but in the right way, because it's not, I saw this whole thing, it's masculine isn't about, being this like macho guy and you're all fit and you're all no, it's and not that you can't be that, but it's about being comfortable with the feminine and it's basically about being able to balance each other out.
Yes.
Like, that's so important. And I think being a part of being a really, really good man and really being masculine is wanting to hear about the woman's experience and wanting to help and wanting to change. Like, that's what you should, if you want to be this powerful guy, that's what you can do. You have so much power. Just listening to the female experience, that's so powerful. And then doing what you can to show up in the world, knowing what you know, that's how you can use power. That's how you can be powerful. And I can guarantee that 99% of women will choose that guy.
All day long.
All day long.
All day long.
All day long.
And
I know I have.
And I sure have as well.
Yeah.
And I think why we both have these beautifully successful examples of this, the polarity of the masculine and the feminine. Now, we'll come back and have an entire conversation about this, because
that's a whole thing.
We will. Let's break that down.
I'm already
let's break that down in another conversation. But one thing, just in to kind of wrap that part of the conversation, is one of the things that I just love and thinking about, and I heard about many years ago, and just visually even made so much sense to me, is that masculine energy, even we have masculine obviously inside of ourselves too, and guys have the feminine energy. And the optimal human, if there's such a thing, is balanced and knows how to flow between both. But I love the analogy of the masculine energy being that container and the feminine being the flow and the liquid inside of the container, right? And depending on which way you hold it or move it, it's going to react differently. And the container is solid and it's dependable.
Strong. And like, if you want to talk about being strong, that's
it can
strong.
hold.
That's strong.
The flow and the force of the nature inside of it.
I didn't know about that. I love that.
Yes. It's just a beautiful takeaway, I think, and really helped me to contextualize it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. As we kind of close out this episode, Ava, do you have any other thoughts or things you'd want to share in regards to the man bear trend?
I mean, yeah, like we could talk about this for hours, but I just think at the end of the day, like you said, the message really is, I mean, we have this thing here. We know what we would pick. Everybody who hears that question, regardless of what their answer is, knows what it is. But it's really about how do we take that and make it into a conversation? How do we take that and apply it to our relationships and teach and learn? Because that's what this and anything else like this is ever going to be. Because it could just be a question or a video you see on TikTok, or you could take it, or on your reels, or you can take it and you can use it and really use that in like your relationship and build from that and get answers from that too, because you're going to get a lot of answers about maybe your relationship, depending on how when you bring it up, how the person you're with responds.
Yes. Things like this are opportunities for us to grow as a humanity and to start to really heal the rupture between the masculine and the feminine, because there is nothing that women that I talk to are craving more than these beautiful relationships with the divine masculine. So please use this as an opportunity to build bridges with your loved ones. And if you have a daughter, if you have a niece, if you are a mentor to young women or men, have this conversation with them. Use this as an opportunity to open deeper conversations. It is one of the tools that I utilized so much when my children were younger. I would use whatever was going on in their world as far as social trends or phrases or things that were happening that were relevant to them. And without them probably even realizing it, I was using that as a measure to connect with them on a way that they would relate and understand, so that I could begin to understand them more. So for parents as well, whether it's sons or daughters or both, bring them all together. It's even better.
Have this conversation at the dinner table.
Like we've always had this conversation.
That's important too. I think about anything, you have to be willing to have those conversations, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's hard. Bring them up, because then maybe slowly it will get less uncomfortable, and maybe your kids will start bringing it to the table, and that's just, you have to open that door. I mean, you obviously open that door for us, but now every single time we get together, our entire family, everybody has things to say about everything. And again, and we're all bringing different perspectives. I mean, what I think and what you think is also going to be different at times, because we're not the same age. We haven't lived the same exact life. So and Hayden's going to bring something different, or my brother's going to bring something different, and Dad, and everyone's going to bring different things. Jax is going to bring different things. But that's why it's important. Because then I think you have all these different pathways that you sit down at the dinner table, and now we're all in one spot to bring what we've collected along the way. And now we're all sitting here, and maybe we can come to one kind of conclusion, honestly. Because, I mean, and Dad says all the time, think about that thing he wrote for us. He doesn't know everything about our experience if we don't tell him.
Yes. Do you want to just share with listeners what you're talking about?
Oh, yeah. Basically, I was just feeling a lot one day, and just, I mean, as important as it is that we're talking about teaching people, sometimes it gets overwhelming. So be prepared to be annoyed by it sometimes, which is normal. But I was just really annoyed one day about, why do I have to teach everyone these things? Why do we even have to talk about these things? Because as important as it is frustrating. Why do we have to?
Exhausting.
It is exhausting, because it just feels like it never ends. So it's a normal feeling to feel that. But basically, I was just kind of ranting in my notes section, which is good to let that out. But I was just kind of writing this thing basically about being a teacher, and kind of, I'm going to have to teach my future daughter how to live in this kind of world. I'm going to have to teach my future son. Why do I have to teach my dad to listen to my experience, and all those kinds of things. And when we were at dinner a few nights ago, I don't even know how it came up, but I basically, they wanted to hear it. So I read it to one of my brothers, you, and my dad. And this is why it's so important, because my dad then spent the whole next day writing
unbeknownst to us.
Yes, we had no idea. Writing out an entire thing about just really showing that he listened to what I said, and that it affected him. And that's important, because again, there's going to be some people in your life who you're going to tell and they're not going to care, or they're going to argue with you. But then there's going to be people who are going to be willing, and it's going to make an impact on them, and they're going to learn. And that's what happened in that exact scenario. And I wasn't even really trying to teach him in that moment. I was just kind of sharing my experience and how I felt about having to deal with these kinds of things. And that already impacted him so much.
It did impact him so much. And he is he has access in a very large scale as a very impactful business leader in the world. And when we are teaching him, he gets to reimagine how the businesses he runs get to be set up, which then impacts all of the people there, and including anyone on the margins. And we've seen that happen in the way that he has made changes in big global business structures.
And that's an example of and it doesn't even have to be that large scale, because not everybody has the access to do that, but just one person.
Yes.
And then it could be a domino effect. Even if he tells his friends something else, or
that's right,
you tell your boyfriend and he's like, hey, like to one of his friends, like, well, what about this? And it's just a domino effect. You can, and just one man, just one woman will change other people. Yes. And thankfully for him, he has this ability to make an impact in his business and affect so many people. And that's why it's important. You never know who you're going to help.
You never know. And I hope by listening to this today, this has landed in a way where it feels useful and tangible about, instead of just hearing about this trend, what you can do to create impact in your own life. So thank you again, Ava, for our continued conversations, which there will be so many more of.
I love you. I love this. I love you.